What's happening, everybody? I am the other Steve, and welcome back to the House of Kayfabe. I am with the heavyweight trial lawyer of the world, the man so famous that his state named a river after him. I am with Stephen P. New. Stephen P. New, we are going to try to get down to brass tacks on all of this investigation stuff. But before we talk about the investigation we're going to talk about, you know, someone who is very happy that CM Punk is a curmudgeon, because Vince McMahon's investigation just, I think in the same exact week, wrapped up like CM Punk and the All Out Scrum investigation did. And man, nobody's talking about that. And it's way more salacious.
Right. It sure is. But it concluded this week as well.
And no one's talking about it because I guess, you know, I think it's because everybody's so happy that Triple H is running shit. We're glad that it happened, I guess, in a weird way. But first, when we talk about this investigation, and I guess specifically like a corporation investigation, who runs these things? Do they get fucking Sherlock Holmes to investigate? Who runs these things? And then I also want you to think about when we're talking about all this stuff, I want you to explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So who does these investigations? And second question, are they admissible in court?
Let's take that first question first. Who does these investigations? Usually it will be a law firm that has resources, that promises to be independent, that regardless of who's paying the bill for the investigation, they agree to be like an umpire and just call it right down the line. It's usually a large white collar type law firm. In West Virginia, it would be a law firm like Steptoe and Johnson or Spillman Thomas and Battle, who usually have big corporate clients, but have particular expertise in matters of employment law, HR, and how corporations function. That's why defense firms who represent corporations usually do these instead of plaintiffs' firms like me, who are usually looking to sue somebody out of an incident like this. And a lot of times, you know, the word counsel. Oh, good morning, counsel. Good morning, counsel. A lot of times these same firms are guiding large corporations through these types of things where they've never gotten onto anybody's radar screen. It's the company comes forth and says, hey, give us an audit. Go through the company, soup to nuts. Tell us what's good. Tell us what's bad. Tell us what we need to improve on. If there's anybody that needs fired, tell us who we need to fire and why, and the pros and cons of that. So that's usually who does it. Now, for whether this is admissible in court, probably not, because depending on who asked for it, a company, let's say like AEW, that commissions this investigation, if they pay for it and it's their lawyers doing the investigation, they could always claim privilege. Now,
and prejudice.
What's that?
And prejudice.
No, privilege with attorney-client privilege. Like if it's just if it's their law firm investigating for the purpose of trying to advise their client AEW, it would not have to be turned over. If they go to this neutral third party that says, look, we're going to call it like an umpire right down the middle, and AEW, if you, the EVPs, or whoever is at fault, CM Punk, whoever, you know, we're going to let everybody know that, and AEW says, you know, we're going to share this, then it could be admissible, particularly if not the conclusions of the investigation, but the statements that people gave. So if I were representing Punk, for instance, and I know that there's been an investigation take place not by AEW's lawyers, but by some independent third party, like a law firm or somebody, then I'm going to subpoena it, because before I go doing depositions of my witnesses, if they've given a prior statement, I want to know what somebody's already said about this.
Now, those statements, because they're not, sworn in or what have you, would they be less admissible? And would it go to someone said something to the investigators, but now they're under oath and they said something different? So, would a lawyer use an investigation to try to catch someone in a lie?
Possibly. I use statements of any kind. It doesn't matter. I mean, it could be a statement in a motor vehicle crash report. It doesn't necessarily have to be under oath or formal. Sometimes investigators go out and they'll just stick their phone or recorder in somebody's face and say, "Tell me what you know about this." If someone has gone on the record, so to speak, and spoke to a matter, I want to know what they said, because if they're going to say anything in a deposition or trial that's different than what they said before, there is this thing called impeachment by prior inconsistent statement, where you can make the person look bad in front of the jury if they've said two different things about it. So a witness to the CM Punk event, if they say something different later, for whatever reason, you're able to bring that out, tease that out, and then you're actually able to tell the jury, so-and-so can't or shouldn't be believed. Because when they told the investigator at ABC Law Firm, they said A, B, C, D, and E. When they came over here and I deposed them on November the 8th, 2022, they told me something completely different. Ladies and gentlemen, you should discredit all of their testimony.
So not all testimony has to be sworn in to make it to a court case.
That's correct. And the rules of evidence say that it doesn't have to be a formal statement.
Now that's something you don't learn on Law and Order. So something that a lot of people, and of course the God Emperor has talked about it, but this incident actually involves their lead lawyer, someone I know that you have maybe sent an email to once or twice over the last couple years.
Yeah.
How much of a sticky wicket is it you have in the middle of this complete shit show? And we'll get into maybe more the details after this, but how bad does that look when your lead lawyer is in the middle of a melee, as Dave Meltzer called it?
Well, let's break that down on several levels, okay? First, our rules of ethics say that lawyers should attempt to avoid all situations where they may be a witness to something. Now, sometimes that just can't be helped. Sometimes lawyers give advice and we get ourselves involved in situations where you just can't help, but you have to withdraw as counsel because you've now made yourself a witness in the case. So ethically, as a lawyer, you never want to be a witness in your own case. You never.
Would you have ran if you were there? Would you have ran?
No, I would have shut it. I would have shut it down before. If I had been there, and we can play. What would Stevie New have done if he were there? If I were Tony Khan, I would have shut the scrum down as soon as Punk started to just, give out receipts.
Burn down the whole fucking company.
Right. And number two, had I been Mega and I had been in the back, I would have told the Bucks and Omega, get the hell out of here. Go back to your hotel rooms. I hear what's going on out there. We'll deal with this tomorrow, but you guys leave. That is not what she did. She stirred the pile of shit even worse, and we all know what happens there. So I think Mega should have de-escalated the situation. She did not, is my understanding. And but as a lawyer, as the number two in charge, I think it was incumbent upon her, with the boss out there trying to continue the media scrum with other superstars, that she needed to either address Punk by herself and say, we're going to deal with what you did at the scrum, going into business for yourself or whatever you want to call it. But I would have made sure that the Bucks and Omega, I would have looked at Cutlet and I would have said, look, get them back to their hotel and don't let them get back over here. I'm going to get Ace Steel and CM Punk out of here. And I would have told Pat Buck, get Ace Steel, get him and his wife, CM Punk and the dog, get them to their hotel. You, Brandon Cutler, Christopher Daniels, you guys get the Bucks and Omega out of here, and we'll all deal with this tomorrow. That's not what she did. And instead, as you pointed out, Steve, she became a witness in all of this. You know, she goes with the Bucks to CM Punk's room.
And that's something else that I don't think enough people have addressed in this, because it is a bunch of us stupid, uneducated marks talking about something, serious in the judicial world. But this wasn't just three wrestlers, confronting someone who destroyed them on national television. This was his bosses. We always talk about the EVPs. So on the CM Punk side, now it's going to be hard for me to not be prejudiced on CM Punk's side, because I am a Punk mark, which is why I have to have you here. But this wasn't just three other performers. This was three of his bosses with their lawyer. So when Mega comes into that room, is she operating as the EVP's lawyer in this situation, basically?
No, I think everyone understands that she's AEW's lawyer. But inasmuch as the Bucks and Omega are EVPs, they are executives in this company. She's not their lawyers personally, but she is the lawyer for AEW LLC. And so you have a lot of brass there. You've got the number two in the company and presumably three number threes in the company there. And a guy who is an independent contractor.
We're going to get into some 1099 stuff. But now, when I ask you this question, I think you know where I'm going to be going. Can you tell the good marks out there the difference between stand your ground state and castle doctrine? And then let me ask you the question afterwards, after you explain those two concepts.
Yeah, the castle doctrine,
which is what Illinois has,
right? Which, as the name suggests, castle. We brought that law from England over here that says a man is safe in his castle, a place of abode, to take up to and including lethal force to protect himself. Stand your ground law is if you're being aggressed upon, that you don't have to retreat to a place of safety. You are able to stand your ground. Different states have different laws about what level of force can you match the aggressors without being in fear of any kind of criminal trouble. Can you use lethal force? Like in a state like Texas, where, if you are being attacked against, even with non-lethal force, be able to use lethal force. So that's all the stuff that we learned first year of law school and criminal law. Castle doctrine in torts. Is it reasonable to set up a booby trap that takes someone's leg off for trying to break into your home, for instance? So,
do you think it's reasonable?
The rednecks like me and you, absolutely. Say, look, breaking into someone's window at night, and you get the Wile E. Coyote buckshot to the face. Hey, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, pal. So the question what I was going to say. Well,
what I was going to say now, the question now that you've explained that to the good marks does CM Punk have an expectation of the castle doctrine in protecting his rights, even though it's not his house? It was his personal dressing room. I think we can safely say that was his personal dressing room. Probably had his name right there on the door. Does he have an assumption of that protection in this situation?
Yeah, that's one of the things that if you're the lawyer for CM Punk that you argue. And I'll explain where this comes in in just a moment. Places which aren't your normal home. I'm in a hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. You may have heard about the Aaron Andrews case, where a Marriott employee put clandestine recording devices in Aaron Andrews' hotel room, recording her naked and everything else. So in places that aren't even your normal place of abode, you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. Here, CM Punk wasn't photographed or videoed in a nude, and those photos disseminated, but he was in a place where he had an expectation of privacy, security, and should have been secure in there without being attacked. Mega and the Bucks and Omega are going to say, well, we didn't go in there to fight or anything like that. So we went in there to have a discussion and things escalated. But as hot as everyone apparently was still, and Mega saying, I'm going to go down, the Bucks are in the right here, and I'm going to go down with them and help handle this situation. Yeah, I mean, that's the way that happened. But absolutely, Punk had an expectation of privacy and security in his dressing room, where he shouldn't have felt the need to be attacked, and absolutely could stand his ground. Same with a steal. That's another concept that we learn in both criminal law and tort law, which is the defense of others. When you are defending someone else, you are able to use the amount of force that the person you're defending is able to use. So if that person is able to use lethal force in repelling an attacker, you as a bystander, if you walk up and the innocent person being attacked is able to use lethal force, you're able to use the same level, if that makes any sense. So the defense to a steal there is 3-on-1. Well, and if Punk's able to use a level of force equal to 3-on-1, jumping him, a steal's best defense is defense of others. Hey, I was coming to the aid of a friend who was being jumped 3-on-1. And, that really, there's a lot of interesting legal concepts going on here for all of these people involved. But defense of others for a steal just came to my mind, along with something like the Castle Doctrine or stand your ground.
So I think that might be like the smoking gun. And I don't think the investigation has been made public yet, but how much different, let's say this goes to trial, and there's still a good chance this could, and we're going to get, the final question is going to be involving that. How much different does this case play out if A, they kicked the door in, or B, the door was open? Those two things seem like that would take the case in two very different directions.
Absolutely. And I think credibility is going to be key here. You have seven very interested parties
that are all workers that lie for a living.
I don't know about Mrs. Ace Steel, but yes. So
you know what I mean?
Got the Bucks, Omega, and Mega. You got CM Punk, Ace Steel, and Mrs. Ace Steel.
And
so
Larry.
And Larry, but unfortunately, Larry isn't Brian from... Larry's not going to be testifying, unfortunately, for Family Guy. So you've got seven folks here, and I could see this being a situation where, did someone kick the door in? If so, who kicked the door in? Why did they do that? What was Punk's reaction on the other side? What I can say from very good sources here is that Ace wasn't in the room when all of this first started. He was standing there talking to Pat Buck.
Now,
They
before we go on, Steve, and in case they haven't seen any of other videos, now it gives me a chance to say, hey, around here at the House of Kayfabe, we are rebuilding. We're not rebuilding. We're actually building a brand, and we really need your help. And if you dig what we're doing, please give us a like, a comment, and share, or tell your fellow Marks about us. I think we got a little something special. I mean, we got fucking Stephen P. New. He's actually real. All you comment section people, he's actually real, and he's not Asian.
I understand what, yeah, right. My parents' names were New and Lee, but you know,
that's hilarious. There's so many comments. So many comments thought you were Asian, but you were someone who actually represented Pat Buck.
Right.
So you now this might be
investigation.
Okay, so you that brings us back maybe to the first question. During this investigation, is it commonplace for the people who are being questioned to have their lawyers with them with something that's not like a court case?
It can, it can't. You know,
Were you?
I was not. I was just before and after, and I wasn't going to fly to Chicago. I had other things going on Labor Day weekend, and so I wasn't going to fly to Chicago or fly to Jacksonville just to sit there and hold Pat's hand. We talked extensively, but that ties into where Ace Steel was. So Mrs. Ace Steel and CM Punk and Larry the dog in CM Punk's dressing room. Mega, Perec, Kenny Omega, the Bucks go down the hall. Things start happening. Cutler, Christopher Daniels run down the hall. Pat Buck and Ace Steel join quickly, and all of them are there at that point. So the initial start, back to your question about is the door kicked in, you know, what's the tenor, what's being said, all of that, I think, is crucial to how this is received. If the Bucks and Omega and Mega Perec walk in the door and go, Punk, we'd like to have a word with you about the scrum. And he stands up and starts, motherfucker, I'm blah, 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 blah. Then I think that takes it another, you know, place altogether. But then we know what happens. Someone gets hit with a chair. Someone gets bitten. Mega walks off with the dog. I mean, it turns to a shit show fast.
Well, I'm not the biggest Kenny Omega fan. I'm not the biggest Kenny Omega hater. Obviously, I am the biggest worshiper of the God Emperor Jim Cornette, and I don't agree with him ever with everything. I agree with him on a lot. But I have to say, knowing that Kenny Omega saved the dog makes me like him a whole lot more.
Right. I think he and Mega Perec were going to make sure that the dog didn't get injured in the melee.
Good on him. Yeah, this was something I actually put in the chat one of these days in our Patreon. We will be giving access to our chat. It'll probably be heavily redacted. But has there ever been, or have you ever been involved in a case that involves a dog's health?
Yes. The first case I ever lost, in 2002 involved the health of a dog. And there's a very unique law in West Virginia where West Virginia, and Steve knows this as a resident of Ohio now, West Virginia is always going to get paid. They always going to tax somebody or something. And so for you to be able to sue over damage to a dog in West Virginia, you got to be paying taxes on it. And if you don't pay your taxes on your dog to the assessor, you can't bring a lawsuit about it.
I've got a story that goes along with this, Steve New. So I am getting assessed. I'm paying my taxes like a good tax-paying citizen. And I'm waiting there, and she's doing all of the business. And she goes, "Do you have a dog?" I thought she was making small talk. And yeah. So I said, I do. And at the time, I only had
that'll
one.
be $45.
That's why I got fucking charged. Because I was like, well, I'm going to tell you that I have this awesome black pit bull named Bonham, and you're going to tell me about your Yorkshire Terrier. We're going to have some talk. No, but my dog, she had the I paid my taxes. They give you
Yeah.
a dog tag that has like
Right.
some numbers on it. I got
Yes.
got. I thought she
Yeah.
just
So
wanted to. I thought she might have been flirting with me.
the first case I lost, I had these like seemed like forever clients. There were clients. I started practicing in August of '99, and I had them then. And this is like August of 2002, and I'd had everything in the world for these people. And I get this go, oh, Stevie, they've run over Queenie. Well, who's Queenie? Well, she's our champion German Shepherd. We breed her. We sell 5 champion police canines a year for 3,000 apiece. And why, they kicked her guts out on a 4-wheeler as they drove past. So we go to court, and lo and behold, fuck, I've got Queenie's going to have babies, 5 pups a year for the next 5 years, and
You're going to get you're going to bring in a forensic economist for that, right?
Exactly. Well, right, but I mean, if she's going to have 25 pups at $3,000 each, fuck, that's $75,000. So judge goes, case dismissed, and I'm like, what? And then I remember torts class and my dear Professor Katie saying, if you don't pay taxes on your dog, you can't sue over the dog. So
That's
they had to pay
asinine.
tax. The judge, the defense lawyer, and me walked to the assessor's office in Logan County, West Virginia, and the judge looked at the assessor's records. No, Queenie, they're not paying taxes on you. Case dismissed.
Oh my goodness. Oh God, West Virginia. I love my home state, but man, there's so many of those kind of problems going on.
They'll get paid.
Dude, they got me.
You're making small talk.
I thought she was flirting with me.
Sure.
I did not. That concept was just foreign to me. So let's get back to the thing. So I have been
Our
talking.
viewers from other states and other countries have to just be there scratching their head like, what is this place that these two yokels are from?
Well, here's the thing. Do you know of any other states that have dog taxes? I got to have them in California, right?
Sure, I would figure New York, California, but Massachusetts.
Yeah, all those places. So let's get back to the thing. I, of course, have been coming from a CM Punk fan's perspective. Now, I would like for you, because I know that in law school you all are, and actually I flirted with being a lawyer. I went to my first pre-law class back in when Marshall actually had pre-law classes, and realized that I'm not smart enough for this business. So I was just going to get a good friend, and I was going to get a good friend that knows all this shit so I can ask him. If you are the lawyer, or if you're from the Bucks perspective, and let's be honest, the people and the content that we digest, except for Derek, are all going to be coming from a CM Punk standpoint. And I know that in law school, they teach you all to argue on both sides. What if any, besides the obvious assault, would you look at the other side? If you put them in sides, what would you be saying as a lawyer to Omega and the Young Bucks? And does it all pertain, and does it all hinge on if they kick the door down?
It does not. If I'm the lawyer for the Bucks and Omega, my best argument is we're the EVPs. We're your boss. And even though what you said has to do with us, in Tony's absence, we're in charge. It's the Al Haig defense, We're in charge. And in Tony's absence, we're going to try to find out why you went into business for yourself, why you thought that a media scrum was the appropriate place to air all this dirty laundry instead of us like professionals sitting down, talking this out calmly. So if I'm the lawyer for the Bucks and Omega, that's how I'm trying to spin this, that there was never an intent on the part of my 3 clients to get into any kind of physical altercation. They didn't even want to get into any kind of verbal altercation. They just wanted to have a discussion, and they didn't even get the words out of their mouths. Hey, Phil, we'd like to have a moment with you, before he started in punching us and calling us MFers and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and it quickly deteriorated from there. If I'm the lawyer for the Bucks and Omega, that's my best case.
Okay, that actually bleeds right into a question I wanted to get into. And as a lifelong, or at least for 24 and a half years or so, a 1099 worker, when you say that CM Punk, and this is something I know you're very passionate about, it is something I don't think that is understood enough in the wrestling mark community. When someone says that CM Punk works for AEW, when people ask me about where I work and if I'm an employee at where I work, I say I work there, but I don't work there, but I do, but I don't, because I'm a 1099 and I pay rent for the place that I work at, but they don't really have much say over my day-to-day business doings that I do inside of their buildings, if that makes sense. From a 1099 standpoint, what rights does CM Punk have to fight against AEW? I mean, he's not an employee. Can you sum that up about, like, when someone says, Roman Reigns is not really, or is he an employee of the WWE? Unravel the 1099 mystery for us.
All right. Well, here's where it gets complex. Normally, in the average everyday that I see in my employment cases, it's real easy to tell who's a 1099 and who's a W-2. And there are lots of misclassification cases out there. Frequently, healthcare providers, doctors, PAs, nurse practitioners will be 1099s of a hospital. Nurses, CNAs, LPNs, things like that, your janitorial staff, what have you, they are W-2 employees of the hospital.
Now, explain to us what the difference between the two and what rights are different in the two.
Sure. For a W-2 employee, the employer has to do withholdings, pay into Social Security, pay into Medicare, and all of those typical things that if you went to work traditionally and you get a paycheck every 2 weeks, employers have to comply with minimum wage laws, Wage Payment and Collection Act laws,
hour laws,
standards. What's that?
Hourly laws and overtime laws.
Wage laws, yes, overtime laws, things like that. With a 1099 independent contractor, all of that falls on the contractor to do. The place of employment, the contracting entity has no obligation to make sure that workers' comp, withholdings, Social Security, Medicare, FICA, none of that has to be done for the 1099. Here is the key in employment law for the determination of W-2 employee or 1099: control. Mm-hmm. And this is where the professional wrestling industry gets hoisted on its own petard, because if you look at a WWE, AEW, MLW, Impact agreement, Ring of Honor, whoever agreement,
and you've seen it's a lot of those, right?
I've seen all of those, and the hang-up is it independent contractor agreement. The superstar is not an employee of the wrestling company, but the wrestling company reserves the right to control at all times the matches, the finishes, the gimmick, the entrance music, the costumes, the opponents. Everything is controlled, and that's 30 years of WWE now. Everything's controlled by the wrestling company. So I've got my first case where that's going to be challenged in the Kelly Klein arbitration against Ring of Honor. I hope I get a chance to challenge some more of these contracts. They are uphill climbs, I will tell you that. But we shall see, and that will involve AEW as well as a successor in interest to Ring of Honor. But be that as it may, that's the whole thing: is do they get controlled? And in wrestling, when they can tell you how long your match is going to be, what your finish is going to be, what you can and can't do, what music you can come out to. You can't work for any other companies. You can't work on the indies, all of that. You're not an independent contractor at that point. You're a
So,
misclassified W-2 employee.
so in your professional lawyering opinion, the 1099 rule in wrestling is a gigantic overstep by corporations.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think in the right setting with the right judge, uh,
In the right state.
in the right state, like Cook County, Illinois, let's say, a wrestler like Phil Brooks could very easily, if he wanted to, say, uh, "Hey, I was a misclassified employee the whole time I was with AEW. I should have been having Social Security paid in on me, withholdings, FICA, Medicare, workers' comp.
I got
I'm
injured
gonna,
tonight and I don't have
I,
insurance through
I,
you people.
right, right. So I'm going to file a workman's comp claim in the state of Illinois,
Whew.
AEW.
You know, we might be getting to the wrap up. So here's my wrap up with this. Man, I've had so much fun. That's awesome. So if you, I had you argue on behalf of the Young Bucks to give them their time of the sun, but fuck those guys. I don't like them. Now, let's say you are CM Punk's lawyer. So let's lay this out. It looks like, as we see going forward with the Colt Cabana coming out, seeing that that was kind of a shot at CM Punk, that they're not going to bring CM Punk back. Now, you're let's say you're going to cosplay wrestler. We're going to cosplay. You are CM Punk, Phil Brooks' lawyer. Would you advise him to take a contract buyout and try to fight the non-compete clause? Because here's the thing: Triple H has specifically said in an interview, he said this, I think he was talking to Ariel Helwani, maybe not. He said specifically, there is not one former, and he said it so pointed, there's not one former superstar that I would not take a phone call from. And right. I think that is a direct hit on this subject. So if you were CM Punk's lawyer, would you look for a reduced amount of money of the buyout to then not have a complete non-compete clause? Is that too scary of a situation to go? Or do you go safe and say, just take your money, go home and set out however many years they're going to want you to non-compete, knowing that he's my age. I'm 45. I think Phil's 42-ish, right? So, time is undefeated. Or, and I think I know the answer because Steve Finu is one of my best friends. Do you lawyer up and go after a fucking billionaire?
Well, I think if it's me advising Punk,
yes.
To quote Cosmo Kramer, giddy up. I say we go after Tony. We air all of this out. We make a jury make credibility determinations on the Young Bucks and Omega. And we put Hangman Page on the stand and Colt Cabana on the stand and Omega Perec on the stand. And we just air all of this dirty laundry out there.
This is your wet dream, wouldn't it? This is your fucking wet dream to depose Tony Khan.
Dude, come on. I'm going to get to depose Jay Lethal and Delirious and a bunch of other folks in Kelly Klein's case. How much do you think I would enjoy the CM Punk case, dude?
So that is just
fantastic. You got all of the elements of all of this stuff. And if Punk's lawyers, if you guys are listening, you can challenge on behalf of the entire wrestling industry the misclassification of wrestlers. You could file workers' comp claims on behalf of Phil Brooks in the state of Illinois or the state of Florida, either one. Then you could also challenge a lot of other things. Then you actually get to, was this a hostile work environment set up by the vice president of legal affairs and the 3 top senior executive vice presidents.
Man, this is
That's
a
a
gold
lawyer's
mine.
wet dream right there.
Yeah, we know what you're going to be dreaming about tonight, Stephen P. New.
I got a big case tomorrow too. So.
I mean, you're on here trying to get another big case, sounds like.
No. I'm good. Out of Big Punk's case.
So there you go. Before we go, if you see the shirt here, I am, of course, a charter member of the Stable P New. These shirts are going to be for sale at WrestleCade, Steve New.
Oh, yeah. A couple weeks. We'll be right back down here in North Carolina at Winston-Salem at WrestleCade. It's a great event. We had a great time last year, interviewed and talked to a lot of great wrestlers, met a lot of great wrestling fans. Barker, this event just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I came a few years ago in 2018. Couldn't believe it then, but doggone it. I mean, Tracy Myers and his team just keep making this one of the premier wrestling events of the entire year.
Well, we keep talking about doing our preview for WrestleCade, and I keep telling the fellas we can't do it yet because they just did a dump of like 7 more wrestlers today. Right. So we don't even know who all is going to be there, but I can tell you who we know for sure is going to be there, and is going to be at the House of Kayfabe New Law Offices / ASW table. We've got, man, I hope we can remember all this. I know we have Claudio Castagnoli. I am going to be the guy picking up Claudio and being his gopher for the day. We've got Aubrey Edwards, the most over ref in the history of refereeing. I used to think it was Tommy Young because, you know, we're old enough to remember Tommy Young would get pops, right? I was at like, we didn't call them house shows or live events or just fucking wrestling. And I've seen Tommy Young get pops. We've got Francine. Who else do we have at our table, Steve New?
Matt Cardona, Brian Myers. Woo. Yeah, Cardona's looking forward to coming down this year. Just saw him this past weekend in Madison, West Virginia.
We got Heath.
And got Heath. Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
So there you go. Come find us. Come buy a Stable P New shirt. We're going to have a few other shirts for sale. Probably some fucking hot sauce that was left over from last year. I'm not going to say, I don't know about the expiration date on all that shit. But thank you all for listening. If you dig what we're doing, please help us out. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share. Go ahead in the comment section and tell me about how fucking stupid I am. We don't really care. Comments help with the algorithm. Go to work. I will
tell you that that's a false statement. Don't let him lull you into this false sense of thinking that he's not the smartest guy or one of the smartest guys that you know, because he'll break it off in you right about then.
So there you go. For Stephen P. New, I am the other Steve, and thanks for watching the House of Kayfabe.